Good morning, everyone. I hope you're all ready for today's talk. My name is Bruce, and I'll be the MC for the first half of the day. And so, to kick off the conference, first we'll have our keynote presentation entitled "Spyware for Rent and the World of Offensive Cyber," presented by Fred Raynal from Quirks Lab. So, Fred is a IT security professional, having started in the late 90s. He founded Quirks Lab in 2011, working on both offensive and defensive security. He also published works in IEEE security and privacy and various security magazines. So please bring your hands together and give a warm welcome to Fred.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, everybody. Before starting talking about spyware, I will just add a little word after the introduction we had. You've seen there are 3 people organizing the conference, and one of them is Jacob, and he was not on stage. He's not a guy of many words. He doesn't like the spotlight, but he's somewhere around. So if you see him telling what he's doing for 10 years and more, it's just awesome. You will enjoy it, but you will never see him here. I don't think so. Okay, let's talk about spywares. So what is spyware? It's a commercial software which is sold to intrude into different kind of device. Nowadays, it's mainly mobile phones. And the purpose of this is to steal the information which are in your phone, basically all your life today. And of course, to do that without the user knowing about it. What is important with this software is they are commercial, so there are companies behind them selling them, which put them in a strange position because basically what they are selling are spying capacities, which usually belongs to governments. So it's a private company selling spying capacities to entities, and we will see who they are. The targets are very different from the usual malware. The spyware just targets a little number of targets. It's not like a ransomware where you will want that to spread to gather as much information as possible, or info stealer or this kind of guy. They just target like 100 or a few thousands of targets. The human behind the mobiles will be journalists, will be activists, will be politicians, lawyers, business people, diplomats, basically everybody with sensitive information. And what is sensitive really depends on who the attacker is. So that might really change from one user to another. But the idea is to stay hidden. So you won't infect thousands or hundreds and thousands of people at the same time, because you don't want to be seen when you do that. So that's why it's very focused, laser focused to find the targets. The spyware world relies on one key resource. It's the 0 days. So the vulnerabilities without any patches. If we look at this world of 0 days, it's organized basically like that. So we have vulnerability researcher, which might be independent. We have bug bounties buying vulnerabilities. We have exploit brokers. They buy vulnerabilities a lot and they sell them to different users. And then we have different kind of users for these vulnerabilities. We will have the spyware editors. We will have some clients like government agencies, spy agencies, police, and some illegal ones for ransomware or whatever. I will not talk about illegal actors because that's not the one I'm interested into. We know they are illegal. Spyware editors, they are more in a gray zone. So all these people are working together more or less, talking to each other and knowing about what each other is doing. But in the past year, there has been a few changes. Exploit brokers, okay, it's back, magic. Exploit brokers, the most famous one was Zerodium has closed now, but we will see that others has appeared here and there. And the spyware editor, they are very well aware that now it's very difficult to find capacity or 0 days of vulnerabilities to enter into any mobile phone. So they develop their own capacity, and they start with that very early. And for instance, NSO, one of the most famous spyware editor, has a team of about 140 people, security researchers. So that's really huge. I don't know any European company with that big amount of security researchers. To give you an example, they said in the introduction that I am old because I started in the 90s. That's true. You can see with the gray hair and so on. So that's a memory I brought back from that time. In 2003, one of the first vulnerability contributor program, kind of broker kind of thing, was iDefense. And they clearly state that they will buy vulnerabilities. So it was a few $100s at that time. Nothing compared to the millions for like a full chain on iOS or Android. And that they will share the information with government agencies and some other partners. So it's not something new. That's my point here. I said the 0 day is really the key to the secrets, to the mobile phone. So before 2018, more or less, it was a text message was sent to the target with a link in it. We had to click. Then that triggers an exploit in a browser or in something like that. And with that, you were in the phone. And from there, from one exploit to another, you take control of the device. Then it became harder to exploit vulnerabilities in browsers. So, and the browser was not necessarily the most important part of where the information was. So messaging application, WhatsApp, Signal, WeChat, whatever, Telegram, were more and more targeted. That's at that time, sorry, that a company called Paragon in 2019 was created. And at the beginning, this company targets was mainly messaging application. They didn't care about taking ownership of taking control of the mobile. They were mainly targeting the messaging application because the information was there. So we introduced the difference between 1 click and 0 click. I tell you that when you receive a text message with a link, don't click on it. It might be a vulnerability. That's 1 click because you have to click. But there are other much more valuable attack vector called 0 click, where you just receive the message and that's it. You're owned. So it's very simple. When you use it, finding these kind of vulnerabilities and exploiting them is very tricky. And that's why it makes this art very complex. There were other attack vectors when you were connected to an open Wi-Fi, for instance, or through the telecom or the core operator networks, sending fake OTA of fake updates, sorry, over the air for application. Every attack vector is possible as long as you receive something on your phone. They will try to use it. An interesting information from Google was that between 2014 and 2023, almost half of the vulnerability that they fixed, which were publicly exploited, were exploited by what I call the spy corps. So NSO, Paragon, and all this one, Intelexa, and so on. So I think it's a lot, but it shows that it's a very active area where they find a lot of vulnerabilities. What is scary in the other hand is that, okay, they found half of them, the other half, who had them? And what are the vulnerabilities which are not found? I don't know if there is some problem with the contact or not, we'll see. This is a sample from the documentation of the most famous spyware called Pegasus by the company called the NSO. This documentation is from 2013, 12 years ago. And you can see that already 12 years ago, they were basically stealing everything which was on your mobile. So you can imagine what they are doing today. That will be the same, but better. And all along now, with most of these solutions, especially the most advanced one like NSO, comes also capacity to analyze the information, to sort it, exactly what you would do when you do data carving and forensic. So it's not only stealing the information, it's also about transforming it into intelligence and something useful. So remember, this was 12 years ago. This was also 12 years ago. That's the infrastructure that NSO was using. So basically, they had a user. So you see it's a policeman here. They had a user sending a text message. You receive the text message on your phone. The target will click. it will trigger the exploit connecting to a Pegasus server, so that the Pegasus server is downloaded on the phone, compromise the phone, and that's it. You take control of the phone. So basically, the structure today is the same, just a bit more complex, and not necessarily using SMS. It can be just an email, it can be iMessage, it can be WhatsApp message, whatever. What is important, I said they want to stay hidden. So the security of the operation is very important. They avoid direct contact with the mobile phone. So once they are on the phone, Pegasus will encrypt and store the data that they want to extract, push it on a server, and then they will have other server pulling the data. Like that, they try to minimize the level of information they disclose on who they are and where they are operating from. This is a much more modern infrastructure. They have what they called, all of them now, or the most advanced for sure, have anonymization layer, as they call it. So basically, it's different levels of server where they can pass the information, the payloads, and everything like that, so that it makes them harder to track. And if their infrastructure is taken down, it's quite easy to rebuild it. And today, with DevOps and things like that, it takes a few minutes to rebuild an infrastructure. Maybe a bit more, but it's not as difficult as it was 10 years ago. Okay, what is interesting is to understand also what they are selling, so the marketing. So NSO, I told you, is the most famous company selling spyware. And if you look at what they claim, they will help to prevent and investigate terrorism and crime to save thousands of lives around the globe. Okay, they are nice guys, definitely. Who would complain about that? Let's take another big player in the game, Intelexa. I think it's even better. So they help to investigate from pedophilia, organized terror groups, human trafficking, and financial fraud. Okay, they are saving the world. Why nobody loves them? That's strange. If we listen to them, they are just like, whoa. Okay, there is another company that I really like, which is much more discreet. It's called Candiroo, and their marketing, I think, is the best one. So it's difficult to track them because they changed name, I think, like 10 or 15 times in the past 5 or 10 years. So here is their marketing. Plain and simple. They make you happy. Okay, so I didn't go through all of them. If you look a bit on the website of all these companies, basically it's the same. They save the world. Interesting question is, okay, how much does that cost? So this is a leak from 3 years ago on Intelexa capacities. So basically what they are selling and how much they cost is there. They are selling access to Android and iOS for some period of time. And their business model is very simple. They sell concurrent access. So here it's 10 concurrent access. That means the user can access to 10 phones at the same time. And they sell 100 infection, how they call it. So, okay, fine, we understand how it works. And that's for 8 million. So if you think about it, it's 80K for one infection of a mobile phone. It's not that expensive when you compare to the price of one exploit, one full chain on iOS or Android, which is about like a few millions, 2, 3, 4, depending. So it's reasonable. And on top of that, you have some maintenance, you have some backend, which gathers the information, which sorts the information. So honestly, 8 million is a lot of money, that's for sure. I don't know what is happening with the blinking. Ooh, spooky. Maybe NSO is here. Or Intelexa. Okay, we'll see. So anyway, for 8 million, I think I wouldn't say it's a fair price, but that doesn't seem that expensive. What is interesting is also the capacities they provide. So there is a warranty, and as I was saying, what is important is the capacity for the platform to access to the mobile phone. So always have to upgrade with new exploit as soon as there is an upgrade in iOS or Android. So they also provide this capacity, which might let the platform unable to perform during some days, weeks, but that's part of the game. The options are interesting. The persistency is the fact that, okay, you access to the phone, and even if it reboots, you can still access the phone. So it was 3 million. Out of 8, it's very expensive, and it was 3 years ago. Getting persistency on mobile phone now is not that simple. But if you really, really want that, okay, you pay 3 more million. I think it's even harder now. I don't have the latest price, so if somebody has them, please share them with me. But yeah, I think it might be more expensive now. What is very cheap, I think, is that what I didn't mention on the pricing, for 8 million, you can only infect people in 1 country. But for 1 more million, 1.2, okay, you can go into 5 more countries. So you can go into Singapore, France, USA, China, and let's say Israel. Interesting target, potentially. 1 million is cheap for that. Okay, let's look into the different actors that are available now. I said the fuel of all of that are 0 days. They used to be Zerodium, based in the UAE and the US, but they disappeared a few months ago. Now we see other actors, because all of these actors and intelligence agencies need 0 days, and it becomes harder and harder to find 0 days, especially in mobile phone. So we see different actors. Some are more or less covered, like CrowdFence. We don't know exactly who is behind. Some are very open, like the one Zero Thanks, that is absolutely affiliated with Russia. So if you decide to sell to this actor or this actor, you can know who is behind or not. That depends. And that's one of the problems that Zerodium and others were facing, is that this company, when you wanted to sell your vulnerabilities, you don't know exactly what they will do with it, and you don't know to whom they will sell them. So for some people, that's a problem. For some others, it's fine. They just sell for money and they're happy like that. For some other people, it's a problem. So you have to pick who you sell to. There are different resources that I list in the slides, analyzing the offensive cyber corporation. So this one is an old website, but which is updated every month or 2-3 months. You might already know him. So I took the data set and made some graphs to show nice pictures. What is interesting with this source is that they only consider what they call the publicly proven offensive corporation. And by publicly proven, it means there has been some public document available showing that this company is doing offensive activities. It can be vulnerability research, it can be spyware, it can be interception, legal interception, like different kind of things. But there is a document making sure, 100% sure, that this company is doing offensive work. In the data set, there are not so many Chinese companies, there are not so many Russian companies, there are not so many Indian companies. So that's also because they need public data for that. So in one way, you are sure that if a company is there, this company is doing offensive work, and that's a high level of insurance, because you are 100% sure. But on the other end, the price for this insurance is that the data set is not exhaustive, and we'll see other data set with more information. The first interesting thing is to look at the years of creations of these companies. And we can see that, okay, 50 years ago or 60 years ago, not so many people were doing cyber. Not very surprising. But it went really faster lately. And the orange bar is the year of the Wassenaar Agreement. So that's an agreement regulating what we call dual usage goods. Basically, if you are doing something which can be used for military usage and civil usage, it gets regulated. And being regulated means that if you work in a country where you build this kind of capacity, you have to ask your government before exporting this capacity. So for instance, with Quarks Lab in France, if we develop an exploit for an iOS device and we want to sell it to Singapore, we first have to ask the French government, hey, can we sell this exploit to Singapore? And then the government will say yes or no. So the regulation is organized with this agreement. It's some international convention for that. Not all countries are following that, and we will talk a bit later of why and how it's going on. But the year where things were supposed to get more regulated with offensive cyber is clearly the year which triggers some kind of acceleration in the number of offensive corporations. But if you look at the three last year, it's also significantly decreasing. We look at time, let's look at space. Where are the main companies, the main actors? Israel has a lot of actors on that, and I will talk later about it. USA, Italy, might be a bit surprising, and some other countries. Okay, I will talk about that later. This is a view where I combine time and space. So I kept only the countries with at least 2 offensive corporations, and that shows how they are spreading over the time in this country. And we can clearly see that USA or Israel are very active. I don't know if, yeah, you see here Israel, and at the bottom is the USA, but some other country like Italy here as well. And UAE has been very active lately, whereas Italy has been very quiet lately. And that's exactly what I was saying earlier. For instance, in Italy, there is data flow security, which was created a few years ago. It's not in there because there is no official data leak. But when you look at what they do and so on, yeah, of course, they are doing vulnerability research. There has been a keynote in another conference explaining that. They have a vetting process and so on. So that's the bias of this data set. This is another source, just so that if you want to investigate this kind of information. Another one I like is this one from Differ Lab. It's a study they call Mystical Beast, where they put a lot of information about the people, the companies, the funding, because I was explaining earlier that developing this kind of capacity costs a lot of money. So you have investors. And they relate everything, and we will see that this world of what they call the mystical beast is actually a very small world. To give you an example, here are some of the guys who founded NSO at the beginning. In the middle, it's some guys funding and working at Intelexa. And you see that the people funding NSOs are also working with the guy funding Intelexa. And actually, the guys behind this kind of company, they are usually not only men of only one company. They create one activity, then another, then another, then another, and we will go just after that. They create some kind of network like that. At the bottom is a very famous Indian company called Apin. So they are not really into the world of spyware. They were more hacker for hire. But what was interesting in the history of offensive cyber is that Apin created a lot of, it's not directly subsidiaries, but they create a lot of other companies like Beltrox and many others who basically was doing exactly the same. And India now is very active in this field. But the two brothers, Rajat Kher and Anush Kher, were very active and really started something in India. So this is one of the networks I was telling about. This one is about mainly NSO in the middle. On the left, you had CrowdDream, which is another spyware maker. And on the right, you have InteriorNet. So they are not exactly a spyware maker. They just provide capacity to intrude into IoT devices, mainly routers and IP cameras. But you see that they are connected by, for instance, Sharon Onkin in the middle here was the CEO of NSO, and he is also one of the founders on InteriorNet. And it's always like that, if you look at them. Another example is Intelexa. Usually when we talk about Intelexa, we talk about the constellation, because it's not only one company, it's Intelexa, it's Cyrox and a few others. And each of them has different capacities. So some of them were working on Wi-Fi interception. So like they build, for instance, they have a company, we don't see it here, but they have a company building like a minibus, and inside they have everything for interception on Wi-Fi. Sometimes they build IMSI catcher, sometimes, so they have a lot of capacities like that. So Intelexa is not only focusing on spyware, they have a lot of capacities. But at Intelexa, all these companies I said are in gray area. Sometimes they are not in gray area, they are really in illegal areas. And one of the things they did here is that some journalists discovered not so long ago that the CEO of Intelexa was actually an old Czech woman of 70 years old, officially on the paperwork. Whereas actually the official one is, or unofficial one is this guy, Tal Dilian, who is involved in NSO and many other companies in Israel. I don't think he's welcome in Israel because of what he did, but that's another story. There is a lot of money in that. There are clients, many, there are VCs, and they even have an event going all over the world, so that's the agenda over the year, where they sell and explain all this kind. So this kind of event is reserved for people working usually in government. Some of the training which are provided there are really restricted. Some I don't know, I've never been actually. I would be very curious to go. Might be open, but I'm not even sure. It's really for law enforcement agencies. So it's just to say that it's a very discreet and shady world, but it's a very active world. Okay, we said there are a lot of companies doing these kind of things, but what is also interesting is to look at the countries, because one of the first company, NSO, when it started, it was clearly for money. At that time, there was not so much export control, so this NSO started around 2011, if I remember correctly. There was not so much regulation on this kind of software. And Israel was already working a lot on offensive cyber and this kind of capacities. But they realized that it was interesting at different levels, and we will see that. NSO and the US is a complex story. When Pegasus was shown to some US agencies, they loved it. Like, they really loved it, and they wanted to use it, the CIA and whoever. The thing is, they also worried, oh, but this is very powerful, so maybe some people could use Pegasus against US citizens, and that would be very bad. So they asked Israel and NSO to add something in the code so that it's impossible to use Pegasus against a phone number starting with +1, an American number. So if you are an American citizen using an American SIM, you are protected from Pegasus. By design, I would say. Almost. We will see. So at the same time, they loved the tool, but if it cannot be used against American phone numbers, how the FBI and the domestic agencies could use it? So they came with a very smart idea. NSO created a subsidiary in the US called Westbridge, and they created another product called Phantom. And Phantom can only exploit American numbers, so that it can only be used by domestic agencies in the US. So in 2019, the FBI buy a license of Phantom for $5 million, but the US is very strict regarding the Justice Department and how you could use these kind of things, especially if you have to provide proofs and in a trial. And after 2 or 3 years of tests, it was ditched because the NSO visibility was not so good, let's put it that way, despite them wanting to save the world. So it was really ditched, and apparently the FBI said that they never used it in any operation because it was not possible for them to rely on the proofs or clues that they get from this operation. So you see 5 million compared to the 8 million from Intelexa a bit earlier is not too expensive. So that's the loophole that these kind of companies are using on the legal system. So, okay, you can not use it with American number. Okay, let's create a subsidiary and the same product just for American citizens. Still with the US, in 2021, Apple revealed that some American diplomats have been targeted by Pegasus in Uganda. How is that possible? It shouldn't be possible. American diplomats are using American phones, right? No. When you travel and when you are a diplomat in a country, you also have a local SIM. And the local SIM is not protected. So you can use Pegasus on these local SIMs. And that's exactly what happened. So in 2021, NSO was put on the trade blacklist by the Commerce Department, as a few other companies. I already mentioned Kandiru and Telexa, Positive Technology from Russia, and other companies were put on this blacklist because mainly their spyware has been used against diplomats. There has been a big news last night, so I will talk about it in the conclusion. But it's still on the trade blacklist. And in 23, the President Biden published an executive order forbidding the American agencies, to use any spyware. So they are not allowed to use that. At the same time that they were complaining that Pegasus was spying on diplomats and so on, they tried to buy NSO, at least a company called L3 Harris. So it's a merger and so on, you have the story there. They got some secret negotiation with NSO to buy NSO, but when someone leaked the information to the press, the deal was broken. I told you, it's a world which doesn't like the spotlights, like Jacob, but Jacob is nicer. A bit nicer. Where is Jacob? Oh, he's there. Say hi, Jacob. Thank you. But that's not the end of it. There is another company called Paragon, which was started in 2019. And they said they are really good guy. They want to save the world, and they only sell to democracy. And they have a very strict vetted process to what is a democracy. So they are really, really nice. And that's a new trend in the offensive world. You see many of these companies saying, oh, we have a vetted process and we work only with good guys and everything is fine. So at the end of last year, they were signing a contract with the immigration in the US, ICE, for $2 million to use their spyware called Graphite. But when the contract came to the ear of President Biden, he said, hey, have you seen my executive order here? You are not authorized to use that. So they couldn't go to the end of the contract, and the deal was broken. But at the same time, a VC in the US called AE Partner decided to buy Paragon for quite some money. And so now it's an American company. So that should be easier for American agencies to use this kind of product. I don't know where it will go. I have no idea yet. At the same time, Meta published something where Paragon or Graphite was used against some user of WhatsApp in Italy, including journalists. And if you look at the documentation provided by Paragon, they would never target journalists. Never. So they decided to cancel the license, but some people in the Milanese government said, no, it's still working, we are still using it. I don't know whether they are still using it or not. I don't know exactly where they are. But this is a very interesting trend, because also at the beginning of the year, Celebrite, who is doing digital forensics, so basically you need a physical access and you access the phone and you can steal whatever is on the phone, was in a similar situation in, I don't remember if it was Serbia, Czech, or some countries around there. Their tool was used to access to a phone and implant some backdoor in it. And then when that came public, they say, oh, we should never do that to a journalist or to a student, so we will cancel the license. But at the same time, a few years ago, they sent to Bangladesh Death Squad who are not very nice when you listen to their names, and they didn't have any problem with that. So we see a real trend now in the offensive corporation where ethic is apparently becoming a thing and very important, and might even prevent them from doing business. I'm not so sure where it's going there, but that's a new trend. I was saying regarding the USA, 0 days are very important. They really build, I don't know if there was someone designing this strategy or not, but it's very interesting to see the different ways they organize to get a stream of 0 days. So the US agencies like NSA have their own capacities, but they rely also on broker, and Zerodium was one of them. They have some half brokers, half researchers like Exodus Intelligence. They have research companies that they bought. So Azimuth Security was bought by L3Harris, the same guys who wanted to buy NSO. They have defense contractors, so big corporation, big old corporation like Northrop Group and Northrop Group, sorry, who does work with NSA and different agencies providing capacity. And they have some niche player as well. So they really build a network of capacity to have a continuous stream of 0 days for their capacities. But at the same time, they use money to buy corporation like Paragon, to push some mergers like Magnet and Grayshift on the digital forensic world to compete with Celebrite. And the Pentagon and NSA is working with a lot of with the private sectors as a supplier as well. So they really fuel a lot of money into this industry because they need the capacity as well. So in the US, it's very organized, but it's really backed with VCs. China is different. It's much more gov-centric. At the beginning of last year, there was an interesting leak from a company called iSun showing what they were doing as a cyber contractor. It showed that this private company is targeting some European, Asian, North American companies, and they are doing actual operations. This is not something which is happening so much in the US, for instance. Also, they really organize the stream of 0 day very differently. Because there is a law now preventing any Chinese company to sell 0 days outside of China. When you find a 0 day in China, you have to report it to China and to the government, and then it will go into the machine, and they decide what they do with it. And they created their own vulnerability exploit. I guess Yuki Chen is somewhere here. He might talk later about that. I'm very interested to talk with you. I don't know you yet, but I would be very interested. So it's another way of organizing for the government the way to capture these 0 days, because these are really the core of all cyber operation today. The military and the civil world are working jointly in different operations. They organize the education system, they organize a company, there are the military agencies doing a lot of things together, and all of them are working quite well together. Apparently, they don't export outside of China. If you look at the usual Chinese economy, they start with the the domestic market, then they export. I don't know if they will do that with this capacity, because it's something which is very sensitive and which could be used against them. So it's unlikely, I would say. Russia is another way of doing these things. For them, it's more, the government is behind a lot of things, but the government wants to keep the capacity of plausible deniability. So they use proxy. And they let some guys do whatever they want, as long as it's useful to them. If I have to summarize, I would say it that way. Also, one of the specific things with Russia is hybrid tactics. So they mix a bit of cyber with, for instance, regular weaponry. Like before sending a missile strike, you will organize a shutdown. They will combine information warfare with cyber warfare. So they use a lot of hybrid tactics like that, and they are clearly the most advanced in these ways. I mentioned exploits, so they also organize their way of gathering exploit through brokers and companies looking for vulnerabilities. And they try to grab also from outside. So they created different corporations, and they have websites and forums to streamline the vulnerabilities. Israel is also a very interesting actor in this game. We mentioned NSO, and we have seen that they were active from a long time ago. If you look at the business and the money of Israel compared to the size of the country, it's just huge. The tech is 18% of the GDP. That's a lot. And cyber itself is 10%. In France, for instance, tourism, which is one of our main income part, is 7%. Lux, 3%. So 10% of the GDP is really a lot for cyber. And they created a lot of unicorns and really impressive company in this area. But they don't use it only as a technological device, they use it also for diplomacy and for influence. And for instance, when they negotiate with some countries like Mexico or Panama, for example, I took here, they negotiate with them and say, okay, we will provide you with these capacities that you don't have, so the spyware ones, if you vote for us in this context or this one. So they use it really like in a bargain when they negotiate some political position here and there. And that's why also a few years ago in Israel, it became a lot more regulated. India, I already talked a bit about it. There is a very active market, I would say, with a lot of companies working in the offensive world. Considering the time I have, I will speed up a bit. I want to talk about Italy because Italy is a very interesting case. Italy has a lot of actors into the offensive world. The oldest in the room might remember Hacking Team, but there are other companies, and Hacking Team is still existing, but with a different name. What is interesting is the reason why Italy is so active in this area. And there is one reason, it's the mafia. At some point, the government was really, the mafia, was everywhere in the government, and they have to figure out who was in there. So they made the decision that the prosecutor should be able to use this kind of technology very easily. And so that's why they were building this capacity so that the prosecutor can go into tap into a phone, get the information to know whether somebody was working with the mafia or not. Because everybody was suspicious that everybody was working with the mafia. So that's why they developed this capacity for very cheap. And they said, okay, it's more important to have this capacity and to detect who is in the mafia than to save the privacy of people. So that really depends on the country. You see, there might be very different reasons. Clearly, the US and China, they want to fight to each other, so they need the capacity. Russia is trying to exist in the middle. Israel, it's for negotiation in the diplomatic scene. Italy, it's to protect from the mafia. So there are a lot of good reasons to do that. I will skip this part because I only have 2 minutes. Just one word. Palmal is a current initiative where at the beginning it was France and UK are trying to regulate all these kind of actors, mainly spywares, but not only. And a month ago, they published some document of code of practice. So basically, it's how the countries and how the industrial should behave in this industry. For now, it's not something which is enforced. It's mostly based on good intents. I'm not very confident where it's going, but a lot of people are moving towards that. And maybe, actually, what I was saying earlier about the offensive corporation having some kind of ethical code of conduct is one of the improvements that we will see in short term thanks to this initiative. So, conclusion, yesterday evening I had to add this slide because we learned that NSO will have to pay Meta $168 million in the WhatsApp court battle. To remember to you, in 2019, Meta and Apple found out that NSO was exploiting WhatsApp and to access to the mobile phone. There has been 6 years of trial, and I'm not sure it's finished. But yesterday, NSO was fined for 163 million. Not only, they were also fined for 445 million. It's two different kinds of damages. The 445 is for the damage. Basically, Meta users are not protected because NSO messed up with them, so they are condemned to that, for that. Okay, fine. But what is interesting is the second part, the 168, because the reason why they have been fined that amount of money is because NSO has used WhatsApp network to exploit phone, and the term of use prevents that. So they have been condemned for misuse of WhatsApp. Basically, I need to read more about that. It was yesterday evening. I have some jet lag. But what I understood is they have been condemned for a misuse of WhatsApp. What is interesting with that means that every other offensive corporation doing the same might be fined the same. It means they are not supposed to be to use Signal infrastructure, WhatsApp infrastructure, Telegram infrastructure to try their exploits. So that might be an interesting move in the coming weeks of how these companies will evolve to be able to keep doing what they are doing. So that's why I wanted to add this last minute slide. I say that these companies are like cockroaches because they survive basically everything. They get shamed in public, they still exist. Hacking Team in Italy, Gamma Group, Fisher in Germany. All their database has been published, their tool has been published, they still exist. They change name, but the teams are still there. Legal aspect, yeah, I talk about Palmal and some others. They find loopholes all the time. Regulation, not working so well so far. And the tech, as I was saying at the beginning, is very easy when their infrastructure is publicly disclosed to rebuild it. So, yeah, they have good ways of existing. The reason is very simple. The demand is extremely high. A lot of countries, and it's legitimate, need this capacity because they want to protect from terrorism or whatever. I was making a joke earlier about the terrorism, but yeah, of course, everybody wants to protect from terrorism. The difficult part in that is that not every country has the same definition of what is a terrorist. The definition in Singapore, in France, in Russia, in China, or in Bangladesh might not be the same. And that's where it's very difficult. So I was mentioning we see a lot of ethical process in that now. That's an interesting move. We will see where it goes. What is sure now is that all these technologies are really seen as weapons and are negotiated as weapons. Israel is the most advanced example in that because they really use that, the spyware and so on in their negotiation. But every country is going there. China and US are preparing a war. So we'll see where it will be going. And I'm done. Thank you very much.